Oregon plan to ban sale of kangaroo products is emotive misinformation, industry says. You might think, what have the kangaroos done to deserve to be, massacred and made into soccer cleats? Yeah, nothing. But then again, if you know anything about kangaroos, they're basically considered pests in Australia. Yeah, they're considered pests. You will see them in the outback, and not even on the outback, just, not quite out to the outback. You'll see them dead on the side of the road all day long. You'll see dozens of them, hundreds of them if you drive along for far enough. They're just, they're like rabbits. But you got some jokers down in Oregon who are like, we can't have the kangaroos being used for clothing purposes. It's inhumane. It's not good for the environment. I don't even know what their reasoning is, but it's kind of funny. People in Australia are like, yeah, you guys essentially don't know what you're talking about. You literally have no idea what you're talking about. Let's jump on into it. Let's see what the deal is. You haven't already? Love to have you subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so that you get notified each time we have new content coming out. Smash the like button. And most importantly, share this content with your friends. That's what helps me out the most. Get that word out there. Also, if you really like this channel and you want to support what I do, kind of what we're working towards here, check out reasonabletv.com. That's our members only platform. Got all kinds of cool content on there, content you won't find anywhere else. We're releasing new members only content every single week. Love to have you check it out. $10 a month. Thanks in advance. Proposed bill takes aim at unconscionable trade, mainly in football boots, but Australian producers say culling is necessary. This is not an endangered species. There's millions and millions of kangaroos running around Australia to the point where they have a negative impact on the environment because they eat everything in sight. They take up too many resources. They dent cars, the denting cars. I made that one up. But if you got a kangaroo running alongside you, you got to be careful because those things are stupid. They will literally jut right out in front of you and, your car will just boom. And they're a big animal. They're a big animal. So, you can get in an accident. You can get killed because you're smacking into, a large mammal. But some joker down in Portland, down in Oregon is like, no, we can't have the kangaroos being killed, made into clothing. But Australian industry, a bill that would ban the sale of kangaroo parts has been introduced in the U.S. state of Oregon, taking aim at sports apparel manufacturers that use the animal's leather to make their products. We use a lot of animal leather, don't we? We just do. I mean, we don't really think much about it. But somebody is like, I really like the kangaroos. I think they're confusing kangaroos with koala bears, which are also, they're fuzzy and warm looking, but they're not great creatures to have around. I remember my mom's Australian, half my family's in Australia. So I know a little bit about this stuff. And I've experienced the kangaroos in the outback. I mean, they're literally just run wild and they reproduce like rabbits. They're just, they're all over and they will see a car going because you might be in an area where you might not see a car for 5, 6, 7 hours in the outback. It's just you and the dirt road and all the people on their Toyota Highlanders or whatever it is they drive there. Some version of it's an off-road rig. It's got one of those exhaust systems, a stack that comes out of the hood. So you can go through 14 feet of water and, not conk out your engine. That's literally, you see white versions of those all throughout the outback of Australia. That's what's out there. Those are the cars that survive. It's such a, formidable environment. So you got those and you got the kangaroos and, a handful of people every few hundred miles. And that's way in the outback. But Australian industry and conservation experts say the bill is driven by emotive misinformation. It means just people getting really worked over something they don't really understand. That sounds about right for Oregon, doesn't it? Sounds about right for Multnomah County. And it's backed by people who are not qualified to comment. Uh-oh. Those are shots fired. The Australian government has also defended the industry as sustainable and humane. They literally need to cull the herd, right? It's like you hand out permits for like elk or deer here. And the experts go out and figure out how many animals they've got based on a sampling. They come back, they calculate their numbers because this is all based on the data and the science, of course. And then they issue, number of permits to hand out to hunters. Go kill them, guys. Good luck. Go kill Bambi. And they do. And that's how this goes. So when you've got this joker, whomever it is in Oregon, just some probably really uninformed folks that are like, nope. Yeah, can't have the kangaroos being made into clothing. No. It's just like, why? What is your basis for this? There's got to be some basis of sorts. Is it truly just emotive misinformation? Maybe that's the deal as well. The Australian government has also defended the industry as sustainable and humane. Football boots, known as soccer cleats in the U.S., are one of the only products made from kangaroo leather that are routinely sold in Oregon. Oregon Public Broadcasting reported the measure would impact Nike, which is based in Oregon and the state's largest employer. I have touched on this before. This has been introduced into legislature before. It's unconscionable that millions of native wild animals in Australia have been killed for the sake of high-end soccer cleats worn by a subset of elite soccer players. All right, this sounds like Workers of the World Unite, right? But it's actually Democratic Oregon Senator Floyd Prozansky who introduced the bill, said in a news release issued on Monday night by animal rights groups. So how is this much different than cows? It's really not. It's really not. And these things run wild. And if you don't kill a certain number of these, it'll wildly change the ecosystem that is Australia. So how are you so dense that you can't figure this out? How about go to Australia? Go there and you tell me what you see when you get a little bit outside of town, right? Northern part of the country. Middle part of the country, and anywhere out there. All those cities in Australia are based on the coast, right? You go a little bit into the outback, things are pretty grim. There's not a lot going on there. Some beautiful landscape, but not a lot going on there. And in the summer, it gets hot. Or their winter, it's all backwards, right? Because right now they're having their heat. This is their hot time of the year. Remember going there as a kid, going to Sydney as a kid. And, it would be, we'd go there for Christmas break during school because you got a couple of weeks off, and you'd go there and we'd just get sunburned because you didn't have, sunscreen wasn't a big deal. The parents would be like, slap a little on yourself if you need to. But other than that, we're just going to have you out in the sun for hours and hours at a time. My brother and I got so sunburned one time that we could not walk. The skin on our calves were so burned, big blisters on the shoulder. We'd been building sandcastles all day. It was epic. This is Manly Beach, I think, but it was hot and you get sunburned. So, wildly different climate, wildly different seasons there because they're, that whole Southern Hemisphere thing. In the news release, the Center for a Humane Economy, Animal Wellness Action, and Animal Wellness Foundation welcomed the move. Of course they did, but they don't even understand. They've done so little research on this topic that they're just like, we can't have the kangaroos being slaughtered for shoes. It's time for these shoe manufacturers to evolve their business model to eliminate extreme animal cruelty in their product offerings, said board member Renee Tatro. What is the extreme animal cruelty here? They're harvesting animals, right? So where's the extreme animal cruelty? Are they doing it in a particular way that is inhumane? I haven't been reading that accusation. I haven't seen anything there. Oregon's bill would make it a crime to buy, receive, sell, or commercially exchange any product containing a part of a dead kangaroo. Well, that right there. I mean, we're not really arresting anybody for a crime other than the worst of things because we're not really prosecuting and we're not really putting those people in jail in Oregon. So, dead kangaroos, would this really even be enforceable? I see a kangaroo pelt. Is that a kangaroo pelt there? Are you dealing in the illegal kangaroo pelts? We're gonna need to see you downtown. We're gonna have to talk to you. This is such virtue signaling. It's absurd. It's absurd. The ban on kangaroo leather would not be without precedent. California enacted a ban on kangaroo-based products in the 1970s, and lawmakers in Connecticut have introduced a similar bill this session. Why are we so hung up on kangaroos? Why do we care? It's an animal. Animal is a resource. Yeah, it's kind of like vegetables, lettuce, trees are renewable resources. Kangaroos, you see them dead on the side of the road all day long in Australia. Is this really a big issue? It doesn't seem to me for me, but then again, I'm not a legislator in Oregon. The commercial harvest of kangaroos is legal in Australia, where conservation culling of the animal still occurs. Yeah, it's not like these are endangered animals. They're not the grizzly bear, right? This isn't the humpback whale. None of that. Not even remotely close. It goes the other way. Some Australian ecologists have argued banning the commercial trade would be detrimental to the welfare of kangaroos by allowing overpopulation. But don't work on the actual science or the data. Just go with what you think is best, which is you'd like to go hug a kangaroo, and if we harvest some of those, you might not be able to hug your kangaroo. Those are not animals you want to hug. They're kind of mean, right? Yeah. Dennis King, executive officer of Kangaroo Industry Association of Australia, said, "We believe the recent move is driven by emotive misinformation by animal activist groups targeting U.S. politicians." It's probably true. Those U.S. politicians are so gullible. Do you think my constituents will like this one? I'm going to throw this bill out there. Let's see if this flies. King said there is a need for greater awareness around benefits of managing an overabundant species, including increased biodiversity, sustainability, and waste reduction. All right, I'm all for that. So if somebody says, hey, kill a bunch of these bastards, I'm down with that. And if you say, nope, let them live, their population's dwindling based on this data and science. But you don't even have that. You've just got somebody saying, like the kangaroos, don't want to kill them. The industry is extremely confident in its robust standards of excellence in animal welfare, sustainability, and food safety, she said. We follow the advice of government and scientists and comply with all regulations and codes, as well as being a part of our ethos. And it's in our best interest to do so, because they're trying to manage the population of this animal that all of a sudden you're like, no more soccer cleats. By Dr. George Wilson, a conservation and animal welfare expert from the Australian National University, said bills to ban kangaroo products are backed by people who are not qualified to comment on any of this. Let's read that again. They are backed by people not qualified to comment on any of this. This is a conservation expert in Australia. So he would probably know, right? How many kangaroos are running around native in Oregon right now? Yeah, not many. I'd probably go out and say none, because they're going to swim from Australia. Somebody going to bring one in and let it go in the wild, and they just start to recreate. I don't think so. That doesn't seem to be a thing, right? So what's the reason for this? Why are we doing this? Why does this make sense? How does somebody get behind this whole concept of we need more kangaroos? They know nothing much about animal welfare or the consequences of devaluing the commercial kangaroo industry, he said. Wilson said such bans would result in greater welfare issues for the animal, including more kangaroos shot by ill-equipped means, leaving the Australian government with less capacity for regulation. It means people are going to take their matters into their own hands, because you've got a pest that's out there ruining their crops, their farmers, whatever. So they're going to have to do it themselves. It's what we're saying here. With these politicians in Oregon, they're just like, nope, we like the legislation. Our people love it too. Ban the sale of products containing kangaroo parts. Under the commercial kangaroo industry, kangaroos that are shot have to be inspected, and we can know exactly how many have been killed, he said. If you do away with that, you haven't got a clue what's going on. He said there are concerns about the fallout of an overabundant kangaroo in Australia drought season. Kangaroos are side by side with sheep and cattle on grazier property, Wilson said. When droughts come, these animals starve to death, especially if you've got an overpopulation of them. And if they make good soccer cleats, which it sounds like they do, I mean, this is a renewable, this is a renewable source for soccer cleats, right? So isn't that like just green in and of itself? I mean, isn't that almost like hugging a tree? Kind of feel like it is. Spokesperson for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade said the government supports the Australian industry in the international trade of sustainable harvested kangaroo. You need to send that little factoid off to the folks in Oregon. They seem to be under some different impressions, even though they've probably never gone to Australia. They've never seen what kangaroos look like dead on the roadside. We're going to protect those ones. Okay. The trade is conducted according to science-based wildlife management practices designed to ensure sustainability of kangaroo populations, they said. Sustainable and humane harvesting of Australia's kangaroos has occurred for decades under strict scientific and management control from both the federal and state governments. Let's just say they've got it handled. And if they send over some kangaroo pelts, you can make them into whatever you want, not worry about it. That's kind of my thinking. This is, that might be a broad oversimplification, but I'm okay with kangaroos being used for something that they're probably okay to be used for. And until I hear that they are, rare animals, here's an interesting stat. The national kangaroo population is estimated to be 40 million and can fluctuate up to 50 million kangaroos. Does that sound like an animal that needs to be protected? 40 million, 50 million? I mean, you're talking about harvesting what? A million or kangaroos a year, something like that. And you're worried because you got 40 or 50 million of them? 40 or 50 million. Yeah. And some joker is wasting their time down in Oregon. Don't kill the kangaroos. And we wonder how we get here. I'm not even going to read the rest of the, okay. 1.3 million kangaroos were killed for commercial purposes in Australia in 2021. 1.3 out of 40 or 50 million. Those numbers alone right there. That's the data and the science. Jokers down in Oregon. What data and science are you guys looking at? It's wild, right? Is this shocking? No. This is how Oregon got to be the way it is, unfortunately. Nonsense like this. Washington's not that far different. A lot of tree hugging and ridiculous emotive misinformation. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here on this one. We'll catch up on the next one. Bye for now.